If you've ever had that one neighbor who treats your yard like their personal battlefield, then you're going to want to hear this. And before we get into the chaos, tell me which country you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. The story begins in a quiet suburban neighborhood, where the homes were tidy, the lawns were trimmed, and the gossip flowed through the streets as steadily as the mail. The community liked to present itself as calm, but anyone who lived there long enough knew that peace was always one bad decision away from collapsing. The garden sat at the edge of a modest brick home owned by someone who preferred hard work over attention. Rows of bright marigolds lined the walkway, tall sunflowers leaned toward the sun, and a set of raised beds held vegetables that were tended with daily precision. The garden wasn't extravagant, but it held a sense of pride and patience. It had taken months to plan, plant, and perfect. Across the street lived Karen. She considered herself a guardian of the block and acted as if her opinions carried legal authority. She monitored trash bins, counted holiday lights, and corrected anyone whose lawnmower touched the sidewalk. Her spite grew like weeds, finding any opportunity to latch on to someone's day and choke the joy out of it. She believed she owned the street, and the garden across from her window became her latest fixation. The tension started small. At first, Karen stood on her porch staring with crossed arms as new flowers were planted. She didn't approve of the arrangement, the colors, or the fact that it drew compliments from other neighbors. Then she took issue with the compost bin, followed by the trellis, and eventually even the garden hose. Each new detail seemed to threaten the perfect image she believed she created for the neighborhood. Her resentment grew quietly but steadily, until she convinced herself that the garden was a violation of something. Anything. She just needed a reason. The season warmed, and the garden reached new life. Bees drifted between blossoms, the vegetables began to rise, and the yard held a soft fragrance that pulled neighbors to the sidewalk just to admire it. But what brought joy to others only sharpened Karen's bitterness. She wanted control. She wanted the yard across from hers to fit her image, not the owner's. One morning while the owner was away at work, Karen saw the chance she had been waiting for. She walked across the street, carrying the confidence she mistook for authority. The gate latch clicked open, and she stepped inside with a mission in her mind. She believed she could take what she wanted from the garden, shape it how she thought it should look, and no one would challenge her. She considered herself justified. She pulled up the marigolds first. Their bright colors irritated her, so she tore them out by the handful. Then she moved to the vegetable beds, removing the small stakes and tossing them aside. She clipped vines she viewed as messy, bushes she thought were too large, and cut into the sunflowers as if they were clutter. Each action felt like a victory to her. She believed she was restoring order. She didn't see destruction. She saw improvement. By the time she left the yard, the garden looked wounded. Soil was scattered, stems were snapped, and entire sections were stripped bare. Karen returned home satisfied, unaware that another neighbor had watched the entire thing from a kitchen window. That neighbor knew the work that had gone into the garden and quietly recorded the scene without saying a word. The footage showed every step Karen took, every plant she pulled, and every moment she spent creating damage she thought she had the right to make. When the owner returned later that evening, the calm evening turned heavy. The damage felt personal. Months of care had been wiped out in a single morning, and the yard no longer reflected the patience that had gone into it. Instead, it held the careless touch of someone who believed they could impose their will without consequence. Rather than confronting Karen directly, the owner took a breath and reviewed the footage that the neighbor provided. Every detail was captured clearly. There was no room for excuses or misunderstandings. With evidence in hand, the next step became obvious. The cleanup needed to happen, the garden needed to be restored, and the person responsible needed to carry the cost. A professional landscaping company arrived the next day. They assessed the damage, replaced the flowers, fixed the trellis, restored the vegetable beds, and replanted the sunflowers that had been cut down. It took time and a significant amount of money, but by the end of the project, the garden looked healthier than before, and the invoice was ready. The bill included every item: labor, soil replacement, new plants, trellis repair, and restoration services. The total was substantial, and it was sent directly to Karen with a copy of the video attached. The message was simple and direct. She had caused the destruction, and she was now responsible for the cost. The reaction was immediate. Karen stormed out of her home in outrage, furious not only about the bill, but that she had been caught. She expected sympathy from the neighbors she often lectured, but none came. The evidence was undeniable, and everyone had seen how casually she had destroyed something that wasn't hers. Her authority evaporated, replaced by the reality of her actions. She refused to pay at first. She tried to rally support, but the neighborhood had grown tired of her behavior long before this incident. The bill was forwarded to the HOA, which reviewed the footage and enforced the payment under their property damage rules. Her protests faded under the weight of policy she could no longer twist to her advantage. In the end, she paid every cent. The garden thrived once again, and the quiet street returned to its normal rhythm. Karen retreated from her role as self-appointed enforcer, and the rest of the neighborhood felt a little lighter without her constant interference. The garden's owner continued tending to it with the same care as before. The plants grew stronger, the colors deepened, and the sunflowers eventually stretched tall again. The experience had left its mark, but it also reinforced a simple truth. Boundaries mattered, evidence mattered, and even the loudest neighbor could be held accountable with patience and proof. The story closed with the garden standing tall, not as a symbol of conflict, but of resilience. It remained a place of calm, even in a neighborhood where drama sometimes bloomed faster than the flowers. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that button so this video gets the boost it deserves. Let me know which country you're watching from, and stay tuned for more stories.